The real test of any business owner is being able to build a big business, go to zero, and build it again. And in this video, I'm going to share exactly how at the age of 19, I built my business to $150,000 per month in like 8 months, and it went to zero almost overnight. And that was after spending a year and a half building it, putting 16-hour days into building it. But I made these 4 core mistakes in this video that I'm about to explain. And if you want to know these mistakes, because I see so many business owners make these same mistakes, and I thought when I made them and my business crashed and went to zero, that I thought that I was, alone and I made these mistakes, and I was just stupid. But then I realized that almost every single successful entrepreneur that I know, they almost all made these mistakes as well. And you can save so much time by just knowing what these 4 mistakes are, and you can also, while you're growing a business and taking off, not fall into these traps, which I'm about to explain. So the first trap I see all the time is attaching your identity to the income you make or the revenue you generate. So a lot of entrepreneurs, they become entrepreneurs because they want independence and they want freedom, right? And they want freedom specifically away from a 9-to-5, a job, getting paid by a boss, earning a salary every single month. And what happens is they actually achieve that. So, they might start making money with their business. Let's say they're making 100K a year. Let's say they're making, 300-400K a year, whatever it may be. But what happens is that when you work a job, fundamentally, and this is what you call the rat race, people who work jobs and are stuck in that 9-to-5 circle, is what they do is, they'll make their paycheck every single month and then they'll spend it. But they'll be like, well, it's fine because I'm going to get paid next month. And I'll get paid next month. So they just continue eating up all the cash that they make. And that's why a lot of people become entrepreneurs, because they want more freedom, they want to earn more money. But what they do is they start making income. So they start generating income. Let's say that, you make, let's say you make $100,000 per month. But then you spend practically all that money. Okay, and this happens all the time, especially when you're just taking off and you start paying yourself tens of thousands of dollars per month. You start paying yourself all that money, but you start spending it all. And what do you tell yourself? Well, you tell yourself, it's fine because I'm going to make that back from my business next month. And that's until you don't. And that's the mistake I see that's the mistake I made. So when I started my business, I started making money, and I started growing. And I spent practically all the money I made. I made a good amount of money in 8 months. In fact, quite a lot. It was life-changing money, in fact. And what did I do? I went to Dubai, I went to Miami, I spent it all. Classic, right? But what I didn't understand was that I was in that same rat race. I was building these golden handcuffs, the penthouse, the car, all these luxuries, all these things that drag you in, and it becomes a rich person's rat race. You end up falling into these traps where, you wanted to become free from a boss, you wanted to become free from debt, whatever it may be. And you started a business and it achieved those things, but then what did? You did the exact same thing. You got tricked. You started getting a penthouse, you started overspending, you started spending all your money you were making on other things. And the problem is, if you get a car, if you get a penthouse, and I'm not saying don't get those things, but I'm saying that if you're spending all your money to get those things, you are screwed because you are creating golden handcuffs. You're going to get trapped, and you will become a slave to your business. And that is not independence. The goal of being an entrepreneur is independence. And I used to think about this a lot, but I never knew how to describe it, and I've got it right now. So what I call it is the clock principle. I didn't invent this. I learned this from a good friend of mine who went through the similar circumstances and experiences that I did. And what he learned and what he told me was that, Kieran, you shouldn't measure your success by income or revenue. You should measure it by the clock principle. Now, the clock principle is essentially your total net worth. So it's the total amount of money that you have, either liquid or just in investments, but just how much money that you have to your name in net worth, divided by your expenses. So you have net worth, and then monthly expenses. And what that tells you? That tells you how long you have to really operate until you need to start getting money, right? And this is one of the most freeing principles I have ever learned. Because as soon as I understood this, I understood, oh, this is exactly why I started in business. That was my exact goal and what I was trying to build, right? I was trying to build independence for myself. And let's just say, for example, your net worth is, just for ease of math, $100,000. Let's just say that. And let's say that your monthly expenses is $5,000. That means you have 20 months on your clock. Or if you want to put it into years, which I always like to do because it helps me like envision and think long term, you have like 1.6, 1.8 years. Okay? That's how long you have left until you need to make money. And what I realized was my goal wasn't necessarily how much income I make. My goal wasn't necessarily to make, obviously I would love to make, $1 million months in income, and that is, the goal maybe long term, or to make $500,000 a month plus in income. I realized that actually my main goal right now is just to extend my clock. And the thing is with the clock is it's totally dependent on you. It totally depends on what your expenses are, and it totally depends on your lifestyle, right? So if you live a more, let's say expensive lifestyle, you have the penthouse, you have the Ferrari, you have all these things, right? They become golden handcuffs if your clock is 3 months. You're screwed if your clock is 3 months. But, if your clock is 5 years, even after, all these expenses you have, okay, well then you're not a slave, because then okay, I have 5 years on my clock where I could live this lifestyle comfortably, my business could go to zero, but I'd still be able to operate. So it allows you to adjust how you think in an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset. Everyone always talks about, think abundant, think big. Well, it's hard to do that when you have, say, no money or your clock's zero. But if you have a clock that, the goal is to extend it as much as possible, and let's just say that your clock is 10 years, then you can truly think long term. This is how you unlock a long-term mindset in business. And a long-term mindset is going to make you millions, decamillions of dollars, when you build something for the long term. But this is how you think long term. Is knowing that, hey, I could make zero income for the next 10 years and my business, I can make zero income for the next 10 years, my business could go to zero, but I would still have 10 years on my clock where, I could go to a beach for 3 years and figure out what I next want to do, realistically. That is true freedom. And pretty much every single one of you who's watching this video, this is probably why you got into business. Now, let me say, the same principle applies in business too. The mistake that I made is, and I'll go into this in mistake number 2, is I over-leveraged myself too early. I stacked up my business expenses too early and it ate up my revenue. Now, what your goal is with business is to build a 3-month clock on average. At least a 3-month clock. And you have to think of it in terms of operating expenses. This leads me to mistake number 2. What I did was I overhired too early. So, I started my business scaled super hard. I got to $150,000 per month, and just in a matter of months. And I was like, oh, what's the next thing I need to do? I need to build a team, because that's what society told me was successful, is how big is your team. So I started hiring all these people, and I started stacking up my payroll. So what happened was, I was doing $150 per month, but my expenses started stacking up to $60K in just payroll, let alone everything else. And it started to eat me alive, because what happened was as soon as my business dropped, as soon as I had a bad month and I wasn't prepared, I didn't have enough operational expenses to last, I went back to zero, but I still had $60,000 in fixed expenses. And this is why you need to be really careful when starting a business of who you decide to hire. What I like to do when I start my business is I like to hire contractors, and I like to hire people who are, there's not a set, monthly expense. Because one lesson I learned from a mentor is if you have $5,000 per month you have to pay to an employee, in operational expenses, you want to think of it in terms of 2 months, because ultimately that person is going to have to really stay on for at least 2 months typically before, if you were ever to choose to fire them. So really the expense is $10,000 across 60 days. And you have to ask yourself, is that something that I am okay with right now? If not, keep the team as lean as possible for as long as possible. I found you can get to, $200,000, $250,000 a month with just you. And maybe, one other person who's a COO, maybe a sales rep. But keep it as lean as possible for as long as possible, because not only does the clock apply in your personal life, but it applies in your business too, and how long your business actually has to survive. And this is the mistake I made. Not only did my business go to zero, but I still had all these fixed expenses. I remember I went to zero and I had like $50,000 in expenses that I had to pay out. You know, I was contractually obligated to pay out. And it ate me alive. It really it was really difficult. And I don't want anyone to go through that who's watching this video. So mistake number 3, and this is a separate topic, but it's super important as well, is a lot of people, you know, in business, they say, chase your passion. You know, start a business built around your passion. And then you have people who say, don't do it around your passion. And really, like, there's like two extremes. It's like you should just build a business where there's demand, and you should build a business around your passion. What I found is you want to go a little bit in the middle. So you want to build a business that, you know, you see yourself running long term and truly grows because you love your customers. And it sounds simple, but what I made the mistake of doing is I started a business where fundamentally I realized I didn't love my customers. I didn't love the problem I was solving for them. I wasn't passionate. It didn't get me excited to work with them. And what happened was I was killed by what I call death of 1,000 cuts. So I had this core focus of, you know, growing. And this is my main vehicle, being the arrow here. But what happened was, because I wasn't passionate about my customers, because I wasn't passionate about this customer right here, is I ended up going off in tangents. I ended up starting all these businesses. I was trying to be a serial entrepreneur super early. And what happened was, is it completely killed the main vehicle. And because I went off in all these different directions and I got this shiny object syndrome, I killed my business from the inside out because my focus drifted. And when your focus drifts, it will just kill the main vehicle. You have to be focused. You want to do one business at the beginning. You want to be focused on one business. And if you're focused on multiple, it's going to be really hard to grow one into anything big. And I realized, like, why was I getting so much shiny object syndrome? Why was I doing all these different businesses that eventually killed my main one? Well, it was because I realized I didn't actually love my customer. I wasn't passionate. I didn't want to really solve the problem I was doing. I did it because it paid the bills. It made me money. But really, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. And because of that, I got shiny object syndrome. And because of that, I had death by 1,000 cuts. So eventually my focus shifted and boom, everything went to zero. So what I realized was everything you do, you want to be focused around a niche that you enjoy, a niche that you're interested in, and then you figure out in that niche what is the set of problems that your customers, like that people in the market have there, and that you can solve, and you get excited about solving. So there's kind of like a balancing act. You want to do something you enjoy. You want to work in an industry, a niche that you enjoy. But at the same time, you don't want to be blinded by only doing something you enjoy, because you have to build a business where there's supply and demand, okay? But if you do not have a mission and value behind your business, and it sounds cliche, but if you don't have mission and values behind your business and why you're solving these problems for your target customer, for your niche, you are going to eventually fail because it eats you alive. The founder, the owner, the person who's the business owner has to enjoy what they do. They have to enjoy the problem that they solve for. They may not enjoy, the day-to-days in the business, but they enjoy the problem that they solve for a customer. Otherwise, you're going to be killed by death by 1,000 cuts, because you will get shiny object syndrome. It happens every single time. The next thing, and number 4, is don't build a business based off a promotion. So how I see like a lot of, my friends have made, mistakes of this all the time, and they realize that they made this mistake, is they start a business and, they start it based off a promotion. So it's like once in a while they'll do some launches, once in a while they'll get some customers, and, the performance of their business is kind of just like this. It kind of just goes up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and eventually goes down for a very long time. It might go up again, but it's just very inconsistent. And one thing I learned from Sam Ovens was you want to build your business based off systems, and you want to build it based off science. So what do I mean by that? You want to build a business that is open 24/7, 365, every single day. Because I see all these entrepreneurs, they build all these like cohorts and little promotions, and it's stupid, because what happens is that you never build anything that you can actually build systems upon. You can never build anything where you can actually build numbers upon. Now, what do I mean by that? It's like, when you build a business, the real key and the real lesson in being able to scale is knowing your customer acquisition costs. It's knowing how much a customer spends with you on average. You can never truly really know that if you just do a promotion every 6 months. And your business will just plateau up and down. The one thing it will also do is it will also mean that the entire business is reliant on you and you build no foundation. Because if the entire business is reliant on you as one person, that's not really a business. It's just a person, who makes some money. But if you want to build a business that actually gives you freedom and actually grows, it's stupid to build it based on promotions. You want to build it off of consistency. That, maybe it's a little bit slow at the beginning, but it grows and it grows and it grows. And the person who's consistent and grows outcompetes this person every single time. Because they have also, if the business struggles and they start to fall off, they start to have a bad revenue month, this person falls to the level of their systems, which might be, half of the revenue that they're doing right now. This person falls to the level of their systems, which is back at zero, which they find themselves at multiple months of the year anyway. And for me, look, so it works for some people. I never want to build a business this way. I want to build a business that is consistent and grows and is open all the time, that customers can come in and buy. That's why I love paid advertising so much, because paid ads, I run it every single day of the year, and I know that I'm going to bring in X number of sales calls, X number of prospects, and my sales team is going to close Y amount of them, say 25%. So say I get 10, I know I'm going to average close 2 or 3 of them. And even if my business, my costs go up, my advertising struggles for a day, it's maybe I only get 5 calls. Well, I still know that my sales team is going to close 1 to 2 of them because I have systems. I have a sales script that my sales team uses to close deals. I have an infrastructure on how I deliver for my customers, which is consistent and it consistently gets results. I have a marketing angle. I have a marketing budget that I know that I put in every single day and I get these results out. That is how you want to build your business. The mistake that I made with my last business is it was fully based on a promotion. Sometimes I would take on some clients, work with them, close my doors, and not take on any clients. And the moment that those clients that I was working with left, my business tanked, because it literally was built off a system of me. Like, I was doing everything with the clients. As soon as they chose to leave, it just fell to the level of my systems. I didn't have any way of bringing on customers because I was doing everything in the business and I wasn't focusing on customer acquisition, and it tanked. So build a business that consistently grows and that has systems and a science, a way of delivering, that even if it falls off and even if you have a bad revenue month, you fall to the level of your systems instead of the level of you, which can always be at 0 if you're doing it based on a promotion. Those are the 4 mistakes that I see business owners make all the time. And I learned this myself from building a business that I grew but went to 0. And I struggled. I lost, a lot of money. Luckily, I didn't make as bad of a mistake as I see so many entrepreneurs make. But if I were to go back in time, I would have told myself these 4 lessons and built my business around these principles. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you can check out my other videos where I go more deep into these concepts and also in terms of how I run my business. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.